You found the room, so that was a success. Last session and you found the room. Good job. We're going to get started in just a moment. We're making sure that our online folks can hear us. We're making an assumption, right? Uh, mm, I thought it was on the table. Do you want to start? We don't know. We're just going to go for it. And then
Good afternoon. Thank you. Thanks for coming. My name is Heidi Silver-Paquilla. I'm the state director in Virginia. I'm going to be the online moderator. I wanted to just give a little background about why this session, how we got here. So we've been talking in the COA board and in the NASDA board for the last couple years about it's so different state to state, right? It is so different. But that's one of the things that I like most about being in NASDA is learning how the adult ed program runs in different states, how they're pulling differently from their state resources, their state partners, what they do differently, how much more money they get than we do, all of those kinds of things, and what the impact of those environments is on the program and on our practitioners. So we thought, you know what, let's just put a bunch of us together and we'll talk through some common questions. And to be honest, we did this as an activity at the NASDA's annual conference in November at what's called the National Training Institute, NTI, and we had a lot of fun. And it was fun even having been together for over a year now as a board, learning about state context and how it impacts the daily life of adult ed. So we did it once, we're going to do it again for you, and have some fun and just kind of compare across some key questions that we have heard many times or have had ourselves about different state contexts. So we'll introduce ourselves as we go along, but I just wanted to give you a little context of why this session and what we're trying to share. Carolyn's going to be our moderator, so I'm going to turn it over.
all right, oh, that's your cord. I was like, don't trip over the cord. All right, let me see. This is being transcribed. Okay. Well, thank you everyone again for being here. And I had a lot of fun being the moderator at NTI, so I was glad I got asked to do that again. So a great way for us to introduce ourselves to you is to let you know what state agency we're housed in, because you may not be aware that there are 3 state agencies where adult education might be housed. I'm Carolyn Zachary, and I'm the state director for California. And in California, adult education sits at the California Department of Education, which oversees K-12 education. Heidi?
I'm Heidi Silver-Paquilla. I work for the Virginia Department of Education. What else am I supposed to say?
Where your education, who's the state agency for WIO Title II?
Department of Education.
Good afternoon, I'm Marilyn Pitsulo, and I'm with the Indiana Department of Workforce Development, which means that Title II is housed in Workforce Development.
This is a difficult one. Okay, my name is Wyvon Stevens Carter, and I'm from Massachusetts. And our adult education is also housed in the Department of Education with our current tagline, Adult and Community Learning Services Serving Pre-K to adult learners. We just got added in to the, we go beyond the 12. We got status.
Thank you, Yvonne. I'm just gonna interject on this one. Thank you, Yvonne, because I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna share that with our state superintendent to get ours changed as well. All right, go ahead, Beth.
I am not Will Durden from Washington State. I'm Beth Little from Mississippi, and Title II in Mississippi is located within the Mississippi Community College Board.
My name's Amber Gallup. I'm the Adult Education Director in New Mexico, and in New Mexico, Title II is housed in the New Mexico Higher Education Department.
All right, so just hang on to the microphone, Amber.
Okay.
So the other piece that is also interesting is how far you are in your position, where you are in your position, right, the hierarchy. So the way I like to think about it is, how many degrees of separation are you from your agency head or your governor?
Right, so I think I am 2 degrees separated from our agency head. So my supervisor is the deputy secretary, and my big boss is the cabinet secretary, and then up above her is the governor.
In Mississippi, we're very similar to New Mexico. It's 2 levels above me. So I report to the deputy executive director. She may be here somewhere in the room. If she is, y'all tell her how fabulous I am. And then the executive director for the college board, and then the governor. And that sounds very glamorous, and like maybe we have a lot of pull, but we're like, it's really not that glamorous, but we are 2 people away from the executive director.
I think in Massachusetts, we're pretty much the same. So I am the Associate Commissioner of Education. I report to the deputy, who reports to the Commissioner of Education, and they report to the Secretary, and then the Secretary reports to the Governor.
So we used to be just like 3 steps from the governor, but we just went through, anybody going through changes in new administrations, right? We just did a big reorg. So I think now I will be 4 steps from the governor now instead of 3.
I report to an associate superintendent who reports to the superintendent, who reports to the Secretary of Ed, and then it's the governor. So I'm not sure that last step ever happens.
Got it. So in California, I report to a director who reports to a deputy, who reports to a chief deputy, who reports to the superintendent, who does not report to the governor because he's elected. So, does not report to the governor. Yep. So interesting, right? Okay, next one. So this is really this is kind of a fun one, and I'm actually going to start this one. So it's, how did you get into adult education? How many people in this room who went to college to get a teaching credential said, I want to teach adult education? That's why I'm doing this. Okay, 1. That's great. Or 2. Congratulations for having that vision. The rest of us got there some other way into adult education, and it's become our passion. So my story, I think, is pretty humorous. I was at a county office of education where I was wearing multiple hats. I was overseeing Workability 1. Anyone know Workability 1 for students with disabilities, getting them in jobs, right? I was also overseeing career technical education. So I was overseeing that program. And then one weekend, and I remember this vividly because it was a weekend, and it was Memorial Day weekend. My county superintendent and the assistant superintendent called me and said, what do you know about adult education? And I said, I took a watercolor class in San Bernardino 3 times because the instructor was so fabulous, and that was through adult ed. And they said, well, that's great, because that's more than anyone else knows. And so we need you to start a program. So I started our county program. And then when I moved on to the state, we did a reorg in our division. And my division director came to me and said, so the administrator over adult education is going back to their district, and no one else in our division knows anything about adult education, so we need you to be their administrator. And that was the best move I ever made. So. Heidi?
Well, I'm one of the unicorns. Very fortunate to have come through adult ed my entire career. Done lots of different things, coming through, starting as a tutor, just doing it, just about everything, through researcher, federal, worker, and now at the state office. So I'm so fortunate to have experienced adult ed in so many different ways, and taught people along the way who are like, what do you do? Why I do what I do and why I love it. So I'm the oddball.
A unicorn, which we learned were good things.
And so I have to add, when I first came into adult ed, Heidi was still with the feds, and I was petrified of her. So after 10 years in full-time ministry, I was looking for a less stressful job. I'm not sure I found that, but I fell in love with adult education, and I've been here for 15 years.
Okay, if you haven't noticed, my job in the middle is to bring a little levity to this thing, as we all are. But I'm a friend of ChatGPT, and I asked ChatGPT, how did I get into this position? And many of us have taken classes today on AI. I'm gonna see if it got it right. I came to adult education through faith, advocacy, and a desire to dismantle systems that silence or sideline people. My journey has always centered on lifting up those often unheard, especially Black women and adult learners navigating multiple barriers. Adult education became the place where I could do that work in partnership with others while shaping policy and systems for the better. And the church said, amen. Now, I did come in sideways, but I am, my education is, I am a social worker. So helping people and really lifting people up has been my lifetime goal. So it did get that right. And how did I get into adult education? I was working as a workforce development person at a nonprofit agency. And as is the practice in nonprofits, when the director for the education program left, they honored me by giving me a new position as the education and workplace director. No extra dollars, but I had a better title. And then from there, my nonprofit, I came to the state, honestly, so I could be closer to my kids when they were in middle school.
So my background is accounting and computer information systems. I graduated from the University of Southern Mississippi and did that for about 15 years. And in 2001, began working remote before remote was really a thing. And so around 2009, when my children were in school full-time and I wasn't having to rip and run up down the highway to pick them up from kindergarten and run across town to dance and this, that, and the other, I decided I needed some time to interact with humans. I wanted to do something different to get out of the house. And I started volunteering at the local community college in North Mississippi and really just fell in love with it. I have 2 children. One, and I'm sure some of you can relate to this, one struggled from 3rd grade until literally we found out the day of graduation, her senior year, that she was graduating. And then I had a son that was smart as a whip. I didn't know any of his teachers. I knew all of Lauren's teachers every year. And she had a visual processing disorder, ADHD combined type. she really struggled in school. And I mean, it was a struggle for the whole family, to be honest with you. And when I started volunteering in adult education, I could see so many Laurens sitting in the classroom, and they didn't know what they didn't know. They didn't know that they had a learning disability, and they didn't know that there was hope, and they didn't know that there was a potential future, that they could do anything they wanted to with the right resources. And I came to a crossroad. I soon became employed full-time as a teacher. I've been a transition coordinator, lead teacher, and it got to the point where I was like, I've got to make a decision. And the accounting world, I will tell you, pays a lot better than adult education. But I knew that my passion, I knew God led me to where I needed to be and with the students that I needed to help. And so I let that accounting world go, and I have not looked back. And I still look in the mirror sometimes, and I'm like, I am the state director of adult education. Are you serious? You know? But it's really wonderful because with my accounting background, with the monitoring and the budgets and this, that, and the other, I have a lot of that to bring to the state office, as well as still keeping in the forefront always our mission of helping students. And so I love it, just like all of you sitting in here, I'm sure.
Wow, these are such cool stories. They're all so different. So I come to adult education through labor organizing and labor activism. I worked for many years I had in college, in school, I got an MA in TESOL, but I was a labor organizer. And when I was living in the DC metropolitan area, I kind of decided I wanted to make a change from the labor activism that I was doing. And I noticed that there were a lot of Central American construction workers, because DC was going through a building boom there in like the early 2000s. And so I started cold calling their local labor unions, because I was, again, from the labor world. And I just said, do you need any help communicating with your apprentices and your apprenticeship programs? And they were like, oh my gosh, when can you come over, right? So I overnight started a really great consulting business, just going in the evening from one building trades apprenticeship program to another, teaching the English of that trade and the English of talking to your coworkers and your bosses. And I did that for many years, and then I kind of moved into instructional design. Later, when I moved to New Mexico, I started doing it with healthcare unions, designing apprenticeship programs there, and got into a PhD program for adult learning, and just sort of through there got in there. But I've always had a passion for, in the apprenticeship programs, there's a rich history in the United States of labor education, learning within labor, and uplifting the worker and the person. And so I feel like it's a very natural fit. I found my people in adult education. They were the same people that I found in the labor movement. It's the same people.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Those are great stories. And so now, y'all heard, we're in Texas, so y'all, you heard how we got into our positions. So what makes your adult ed programs in your state special? And let's start with Amber.
Okay. Well, I really, I feel like this is kind of a dramatic answer, but I really feel like for us, it's love. There's a lot of love between us. Like, we know each other pretty well in New Mexico. We're a big state geographically, but very small population-wise. And New Mexican adult education practitioners know each other, and we all love each other. We hang out socially. We feel that we are, we have a lot of love for our students. I think that, like most of us here, we're all driven by a lot of love for our students, a lot of care for our students. That's true in New Mexico. But I think that we also, I think that what makes us unique, and I think maybe this comes a little bit from my labor activism background, is that we see ourselves less as like an educational system and more like a movement. And I think that really paints and infuses a lot of what we do. If you ask us why we do what we do, or how we do what we do, we talk about it in terms of this is a movement, this is something that we're trying to accomplish, rather than just an educational system. And I think that that makes a difference for us.
I've been thinking about this a lot over the last week when they asked me to participate on this panel, and we have a lot of great things going on in Mississippi, but one of the things I wanted everyone to kind of understand in here, and you'll know more as we go along and get to talking about funding, is we receive very little funding in Mississippi from the feds, and even less from the state. And so everything that I kept thinking about that we're doing really great at it all. I'm very analytical. That's probably a lot to do with my accounting background, but I like to get to the root of things. And the root of everything that I would come up with is because we have great relationships in Mississippi. We are a small state, almost like a large city, and we really all work very well together. We can pick up the phone and call people. We get along great with our core partners, which is not the norm from what I hear across the nation. And we're used to having a lot of grit and determination and making things happen. And I honestly, I just couldn't have timed this any better, but I was talking with my son at lunch about this today, and I was like, I don't know why they asked me, because the people up here have some fantastic things. They're just really special states with special programs going on. And I said, I feel like, though, I'm here to kind of represent the states that are the underdogs. And so for all of you underdogs out here, I hope you can relate to me. And he said, Mom, he was in the Marines for 5 years, recon. Do I have any veterans in the room? Any veterans? No? Okay. So he was like, what you're saying is the recon toast. And I wanted to read that to you, and I was like, oh my gosh, this describes us in Mississippi to a T. So if you'll humor me for just a second, it's very short. We the willing, led by the unknown, are doing the impossible for the ungrateful. We have done so much with so little for so long that we are now capable of doing anything with nothing. Never above you, never below you, always beside you. And I thought, how better of a motto for what we do in adult education. We do the impossible. And especially with what we're facing today, we don't know what the future holds. And can we survive with state funding of $1.8 million? Absolutely not. But through the relationships that we have, and people know what struggles we're facing, people have come to us and been like, what do you need? What are you afraid of? We will find a way to help you move forward. And yeah, I'm almost getting emotional just thinking about it. But that's really what it is about Mississippi that makes us special, is the wonderful relationships. And not only that, but through NASDA and through other state directors, just the friendships that I have made with the ladies up here on stage and others from around the nation, that really, they see states struggling and they jump in and want to help, and it's just a tremendous thing. So it's about the relationships. That's what makes Mississippi special.
I think that is special. Massachusetts, what makes us special? Well, should I say that? We have to do it our way. So Massachusetts has always been known for doing it our way. And I think trying to build kind of like the best possible system for the state in adult education has been there, like, even before my time. It's like what it's built on. We have a very strong advocacy in Massachusetts. So the reason why we're funded well with the state is because we have very strong advocates that also elevate the student voices and the need for adult education. And I think that's one thing that makes us special. I think the other thing that makes us special is that we are learning that we are all adult learners, that we all have something to learn from each other and from our students. And most recently, in the last, I'd say 3 or 4 years, we've been actively learning and growing by listening to our students more and more. We are 81 programs for adult ed, and that's not including our transitions and our virtual school and our workplace education. That's just our primary foundational education programs. We are 20 state staff, which is more than a lot of states have, but that makes us special, and it also humbles us because we know that we have resources, but we try and use them to the best of our abilities.
So what makes Indiana special? I'm not sure that this is necessarily Indiana-specific, but more maybe we've been able to leverage it. And let me preface by saying, in the time that I have been in adult education, we moved from WIA to WIOA. We went from GED to TAS to HiSET to back to GED also. We've seen multiple governors, commissioners, and you know what? Our programs just roll with it. They are so flexible, and they have just, I think that is a strength for us, is our programs are just so flexible. Okay, guys, we're gonna need to pivot and start doing these IETs. All right, how are we gonna do it? All right, I want you to start doing classes in workplaces, because we need that for our advocacy work. Okay, all right, boss, how do we do it? They're just so, our providers are just so incredibly flexible.
In Virginia, we also like to do it our way. So we are very fortunate to have a very long relationship, over 20 years, with a single professional development provider. And the Virginia Adult Learning Resource Center, and there's just such a blessing and such a force multiplier for us. When we get stuck and we're like, how are we going to do this? You know, we call on them, and they're flexible to say, well, all right, we'll take this off, you know, for next month, and we'll put this new priority on. And that, you can imagine, was just what got us through the pandemic. You know, we closed one day, and I called Joanne and said, what are we going to do? We've got to get open office hours to just give people time to ask questions. Monday, let's go. And, you know, they just pivoted so quickly, and it's great to have a steady group of like-minded, like-hearted colleagues who are in our professional development group. So it really does make it special for our programs, too. There's that whole resource where they can call on them. They're very long-standing relationships. When they're afraid to ask me, I don't feel very threatening. But when people are afraid to ask me, can we do blah, 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 they know they can get a friendly answer from our colleagues at VALRC. The other thing that makes Virginia special is we do a ton of IETs and get a lot of students through, but we're building on some things that were unique in Virginia before WIOA passed. We had a little tiny boutique program called Plugged in Virginia. If you've been in the field a long time, you might have seen it referenced. For less than $500,000, it had such an outsized impact, which is a lesson. You know, it was a little boutique program that got talked about so much. Everybody understood what it was, what was going on. They wished they could have it in their area. They knew that the state was lifting it up, and the state really thought it was doing great. So when IET came along, and we said, okay, everybody, you know the Plugged in Virginia model. Now you can do it with AFLA dollars. They were like, awesome. And that's a unique response to IET coming in under WIOA, right? So that really paved the way for us to get started. And last year we had 13% of our students in an IET, which is, you know, higher than most states. But that's, you know, and the new MSGs just made it all that much greater for us to participate in that. So those are some Virginia things.
So it's hard to kind of follow my colleagues, and I have a lot of California peeps in the audience, and they're probably going, okay, what's she going to say? And I would say that California, one of the areas that we are unique in is immigrant integration. And I like to say that we started immigrant integration. We were the first, and it was started in 1856 in California with the San Francisco Board of Education that started English classes and vocational training for immigrants who were coming in from, because of the boom of everything happening in California with the gold rush. And so to me, we're very proud of that, and we've always been very supportive of our immigrant students, and it's our largest population is our English language learners, and civics education and integrating into the community. Those are all aspects of our adult education program that come naturally in California. And I think the other piece that is unique for us is that our state funding is built on a model of collaboration with our community college non-credit system. And it's called the California Adult Education Program. And it divided our state into 71 regions along the lines of our 71 community college districts that include 116 community colleges. And in those consortia is the community college district and all of the K-12 adult schools within those consortia. So we can have consortia that might have 15, 16 members within that. And it's really to look at that region and meet the needs of the students and the employers within that region so that it's very regionally based. And so those are the unique things that came to my mind for California. So we're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to talk about teachers. So in your state, what are the minimum requirements for an adult education instructor? And in California, because I just shared with you that we have community colleges within their non-credit programs and K-12 districts, in California we have sort of a two-columned system for teacher requirements. If you're in a K-12 system, you have to have a credential, and you have to go through the California Teacher Credentialing Commission and get your credential in adult education. If you want to work at a community college, you just have to meet the minimum requirements of that community college. And it could be different among the different community colleges or within their districts. So it can vary within the state a lot.
In Virginia, the minimum is a bachelor's. Does not have to be in education. We have some wonderful people bringing their perspectives to our students, but a lot of our programs hire above the minimum, right? The question is the minimum. Most of our programs are looking for licensed teachers, but it's very challenging. I don't know about you. Anybody have a teacher shortage? So it's hard to compete with K-12 for our teachers. So that's one thing that is helpful to us, that we don't require a licensed teacher, but it also means we have to support people more intentionally to get started off understanding how to teach adults and where to find resources for next Tuesday night, when they don't know what to do.
So Indiana is very much like Virginia. We have a state minimum of a bachelor's degree to teach. However, over half of our programs are K through 12 entities, and those K through 12 entities may have more stringent requirements and require licensure.
Our minimum requirement is that you know how to teach adult learners, and you can connect with them in a way so that they are empowered to learn. Academically, we ask that teachers have a minimum of a bachelor's degree. Currently, we mean a bachelor's degree in any state, any country, wherever you're from. If you have a law degree from Peru, you can teach in our programs as long as you know how to teach and connect with students in order to build them up in the way that they need in order to reach their goals.
So in Mississippi, like a lot of these ladies before me, it's a bachelor's degree. It could be in anything. As I said, I came into adult education with a degree in accounting and computer information systems. And we do require them to attend our state offered New Teachers Academy every year, as well as to take the TABE assessment. We don't have a minimum requirement or score on the TABE assessment, but that is something that we want them to take before they come to New Teachers Academy. And for our college and career navigators, we require them to also have a bachelor's, but they have to take the ACT Work Keys assessments. So we're honestly kind of thinking about maybe changing some of that. This year, we're having a horrible time finding teachers, and from the state office in our guidelines, we set a minimum and maximum pay scale. The maximum was $24, and we simply cannot compete with K-12, so we lose a lot of our teachers that will want to go back to the K-12 system. And so we are in the middle of a competition, so beginning July the 1st, we have taken that out so that the programs have the autonomy to be able to pay the teachers what they would like to pay them. And believe it or not, 24 sounds low to a lot of you. We have some programs in our state that pay their adult education teachers $16 an hour. And so it's something that we're really working hard to try to change, because without our teachers, we could not do what we do. We always make our performance target for the state. And so it's something that's higher on our radar that we're trying to shift and evolve in, but bachelor's is a minimum requirement.
In New Mexico, there is no state requirement for adult education teachers. We have no requirement at all. And I actually, I feel kind of strongly about keeping that, because I know that part of the history of adult education in New Mexico and other places involves community leaders, people who are passionate about the community, and come up from the community, even though they may not have a lot of formal education. So on the state level, I feel strongly about keeping it that way, although we're actually in the process of creating an adult education credential in New Mexico, and of course, we have a big, now well-functioning professional development system to support our teachers. And of course, most of our programs are located in community colleges and branch campuses, and they have their own requirements. So, we rely on those programs a lot as well.
All right, thank you. And I just want to add that in California, you can also have a multiple subject credential. Any credential that says you can also teach adults is what you can do at a K-12 level. And so now, again, staying on teachers, on your NRS Table 7, which talks about how many full-time and part-time teachers you have in your state, what percentage of your teachers are part-time?
About 70% of our teachers in New Mexico are part-time.
Mississippi, again, is an outlier with this, about 44%. That's kind of the highest. I've looked at the trajectory over the past 20 years, and it started at about 38%. We're up to about 44% part-time, but traditionally we have more full-time employees as far as teachers than we do part-time.
Nice.
Massachusetts is 75% with our teachers, and 67 if you include the administrators and other staff. We're still high.
Going up. We're at about 77% part-time teachers, and it's been pretty consistent for some time.
Going up, 94, which is really tough.
So California is at 68% part-time teachers. So, all right.
I have a side question.
Okay.
If all of our numbers are high in the 70s and higher, except for Mississippi, does that mean that that's like a quality, or is it a positive or negative? Nothing to answer, but just to think about.
Great thing to think about. All right, so the next one, all right, everyone have their little red, we have to have our little red cards. So you're not gonna be able to see these in the back, so we will read these out. But one of the reports that we have to file every year is called an FFR, and it's our financial report. And part of that is our match, right? You know how your locals have to do a match, and so the state has to match 25%. So the question is, what is the actual, we might not report all of our match, And I know that there's no one from Octane in this room. Um, So what is the actual match for your state? So, I'll go. We match at over 500% in California. And Heidi matches at 25%. Indiana with Maryland at 166. Yvonne, she also said how much state funding she has, 223%.
That's actual.
That's your actual, okay. Beth is at 30%, and Amber, I can't quite see yours. Amber is 200%. So I think what it really shows you, right, is the difference in the level of state funding support that states have. And I know that over the years that I've known Amber, which isn't that many years, hers has increased, and they've been really fighting for that. And I know that Maryland will talk about, oh yeah, we got more money in the budget this year, and why. So, you know, we're really thankful for those of us in states that have that extra funding. So, just kind of an interesting thing. All right, let's talk about some things that might be challenging. So Heidi, how do you write or change policy in your, Yvonne, you start, this is a good one for you. How do you write or change policy in your agency?
Let me
Did you
check.
ask ChatGPT
I did ask them. I won't, you want to hear it? You want to hear it?
Only if it's real.
It is. Policy change is both collaborative and data informed. We begin, is that the answer?
How do you change policy in your agent, write or change it?
Yeah, we begin by identifying the need, and then we ask for feedback, and we often go to our state stakeholders, program staff, and other collaborators. And then from there, we are able to kind of get real world like impact on what the policy will do. One of the good things that we are currently doing is we have a model where we are running our we're running our policies and things through the lens of EQUITY, and we look at what are the potential.
Let's just say those words.
Yeah, let's just say it.
Say the word, don't spell it.
Equity.
Equity, thank you.
I was just doing it for the people in the audience.
Just to see if they're awake and could spell that. It took me a moment up here.
We look at unintended consequences, which has been a real eye-opener when you think about policy. And we don't actually have a lot of barriers to creating policy in our state. So one of our best policies that we've established recently is making the HiSET and GED testing free for anyone in the state. Anyone can take it, whether you're in an adult education program or not. You can have a retest because in K through 12, everybody gets to take what used to be the MCAS list, not anymore, but everyone had access, and we believe that adult education should have access as well. And and because of that lens, we also have been able to work out policies that help our students have the accommodations that they need on the test without having to go to a neuro, psycho, metrometer to get the credentials. So, been really good.
Very similar to what ChatGPT said, my friend Chat here. No, but gathering information, research, it's very data-driven, involving our stakeholders, and my deputy executive director is standing in the back of the room, and so I will take it to her, she will vet it, She will pick it apart. Beth, these are the holes I see, I'll take it back. It's really not as difficult in Mississippi to change policy as it is in some states. Luckily, we're very blessed with that. I feel like adult education in Mississippi is sometimes one of the best kept secrets in the state, which is a curse and a blessing. And in this case, it's a blessing. And so once we go through that vetting process and we've gathered all of our facts and really taken it to the stakeholders and gotten buy-in from our college presidents and our state staff, the state team at the community college board will take it before the actual board members of the community college board to get their approval. And if we receive their blessing, it goes to the Secretary of State's office, is put out for public comment for the 30 days, comes back. You know, I don't know if y'all are familiar with that process, and then put it back out again for the final approval. So it's sometimes a long process, but it's not a difficult process if you do all of your groundwork on the front end, which is what you were saying. So,
All right, we're going to pass it to Amber, who also just had legislation passed in her state to make high school equivalency testing free.
Yes, we did the same. I think there's
2 minutes before the end of their session.
Yes, 2 minutes,
2
right?
minutes before the end of their legislative session.
There's some New Mexicans in the room, and they all were on the text chain with me as I hyperventilated. But yeah, 2 minutes before we made it. But yeah, we did. And I think that, which kind of underscores the fact that there are some changes that are made in policy that are made in New Mexico, at least very easily, just by my small team and myself, in consultation with the field, realizing a change needs to get made. We make it. My supervisor or the cabinet secretary quite easily approves it because they trust us, and then that becomes that. But there are some things that are really important, like the free high school equivalency tests that we try to put into statute. And we've done a few things in statute in the last few years, and that's a longer process, or maybe a rule, a law passes, but it affects adult education, and so we need to write some rule associated with it, and that takes longer. But again, it's really not a difficult process. And speaking of policy changes, Yvonne, since you were talking about your free high school equivalencies, and New Mexico now has our new law, and I know that in addition to our 2 states, there are at least four others that have completely free for all residents high school equivalency tests with no barriers or restrictions. And I think that maybe we should do something like that for COABE next year or sometime sooner, and tell people how we did it maybe, and try to get maybe a wave of this going on in the country, because there's no reason people should be shelling out that money if we can afford that. And I'll mention, just last thing I'll mention about it, so I've got a little soapbox here, is that we did the calculations in New Mexico, and with how much money on average someone makes annually if they have a high school diploma or its equivalent, assuming like a 10% income tax rate, the state easily makes up, with the return on investment, makes up the money that they would put into paying for all those tests in income tax alone. So that's something to think about. This really pays for itself quite easily, and I think if it does in New Mexico, it probably would in other places as well.
Yeah, so as the microphone's coming down this way to Maryland, I'll add that in California, again, it depends on what we're trying to do. We made it a very easy policy change with our last RFA competition. We just put it in that it was going to be 4 years, and no one batted an eye. And then there's other things, and then there's other policy changes that we want to put in, and it takes forever. So again, it just varies on what it might be. So Marilyn, how about you?
So I think we're really lucky in Indiana. We are housed in the Department of Workforce Development, and within that agency, we have a policy team. And so we write whatever it is that we want to, as far as policy, make any proposed changes. I will say policy for adult education is very minimal in Indiana. We have very minimal number of policies. Our policy team will take a look at it. They'll, keep us legal for less and make sure that everything is good. That'll go out to all of our adult education providers, all of our workforce boards for review of that policy, come back with any recommendations. I honestly don't remember any time that anything has ever come back that we had to make any change on. and then it will get a final approval and it's on its way. So it's really pretty simple, but it's great to have that policy unit that can manage that for you.
So in Virginia, we have not done a lot of policy because it would require going to the board and then going, you know, above and above. And we have been working instead at the guidance level. So for me, words are easy. There's a lot of narrative that comes out of my shop. We've got long narratives. We've got a program manager's manual that we update every year. We transitioned to the LACES database a year ago, and every 3 weeks or so, you know, another 4 or 5 page document comes out about, you know, you need to do it this way, you need to do it that way, and here's a reminder on what a post-secondary credential really is. So we're really using guidance to steer and to guide our programs, and the assessment policy is really our only true policy that we refresh each year, and last year was a doozy, right? We had to redo that thing so many times, all of us, with the 5 times. Oh, that would have been a good question. At least 5 times, I think, you know, with all the changes in the assessments. So for us, I make use of the lane that I have, and I'm just edge to edge on words and guidance.
All right, so we heard that policy change doesn't maybe take as much time at our state agencies, but what is one thing that takes a long time in your world? And if you can think about putting this into just a couple of words, that would be great, because we're running close on time and we have some great questions left. So I'm going to say what takes a long time in my world is travel approval.
Moving money.
Contracting.
Grant approval from the governor's level.
Purchasing and hiring.
Sole source contracts.
Okay. So let's go on to a question that might be a little more meaty here before we move on to a couple fun ones. So how are you managing the shifting policies right now? Shifting politics, shifting political, all the realities of what's
Was
going
that on the list, Carolyn? I don't remember that
It
one.
was on the list.
Huh. I don't know, I missed it too. Yeah, okay. Well, I would say that what we decided, I think what I decided and what my team has decided and talked about is that we are going to project confidence and care in the face of all of the changes, because we have a lot of students who are very afraid. We're a border state. You know, we have a lot of very impoverished people that we serve, and people who, you know, identify as queer, and just a lot of people who are feeling insecure and frightened in this climate. So we sent out an email early that sent a lot that, you know, my team helped me put together, and we provided a lot of, as many resources as we possibly could to provide to our programs, to then choose to provide to students about how to make a plan, how to help students make a family plan and other things as they maneuvered this new reality for themselves. And as for funding, we're trying to keep you know, we don't really know anything from day to day, right? But we try to keep our programs close to us. We give them a lot of information. We try to be we try not to freak out, for lack of a better word, to be calm, to be kind, to be giving information, and giving the message that, look, it's up to us as leaders to move forward, you know, with love and intention, and we'll take each new step as it comes. But adult education in New Mexico is not going anywhere. And I'll mention also what's kind of nice is that in New Mexico, as soon as this started happening, we got several calls from leaders in the state that said, you know, I think like you had said, Beth, like, what do you need? how can we help? And it was this kind of emotional rush for me as I realized that, they care, they have our back, they care about our own. New Mexico is going to care for our own. Adult education, adult literacy is going to continue moving forward no matter what happens at the federal level, and I feel really excited about that.
I would kind of say pretty much ditto to everything Amber just said. Being honest, fact-checking. We were talking today earlier in a meeting, and, people are putting information out there that's not necessarily true and accurate. And so being very cautious about what you share, but being also engaging with your people and being transparent with what you hear from the federal level. Staying informed is a must. But for us in Mississippi, I always try to look at the silver lining of everything, and as horrible as this could be, I don't think it will be. And it's really brought a lot of light on adult education in Mississippi that we did not have before. And so I think it's going to have a positive outcome for us in the long run. We might have some bumpy days or bumpy years or bumpy year ahead of us, but we're prepared. But for us, our focus is the same focus that it was before January. It's keep moving forward, making sure that the students are always the center of your attention and your priority. Keep doing what you're doing until we are told not to. So we're continuing on with our mission in Mississippi, which is helping our adult education students.
In Massachusetts, our state is behind us all the way. So Massachusetts has put pen to paper and said we will continue to do what we have been doing, and seeing people, hearing people, acknowledging them, and calling them in the name that they want to be called, and continuing to provide the access and ability that we've always strived to provide. We're not there yet, but we're not quitting, and we're definitely not going back. As a leader myself, I said to the field two things. One is we've been here before. When we went home March 19th, 2019, because there was an outbreak of something called COVID, we had no idea how long we were going to be home. We had no idea what was going to happen. And the information that was coming to us was coming from a lot of different places. Some was fake news, some was real news. There was a lot. We had to pivot on a dime. Teachers had to figure out how to teach remotely. We had to figure out how to get our students information, computers, things of that nature, so we can learn from our past. And we can also learn from our past. So if anybody is familiar with MK, I'll be doing a workshop called Leadership Lessons Learned from the Underground Railroad. We have been through things before, and we have survived and thrived, and we just need to do what we've always done.
Mm-hmm.
So we also, as I mentioned before, we have a new, much more conservative governor and legislature in Indiana, with new priorities as well as what's taking place at the federal government. And because of this, most of our funding is state funding. We have really tried to prioritize our work within our state, with our state legislature, with our new governor, really focusing on that budget, because that today is what we can impact, less at the federal level for Indiana. But I just wanted to share with you, someone sent me this little meme, and it's fish. You're not going to be able to see it, but it says, "Do not panic, organize," right? So I see my job as the state director to be the voice of calm. My staff might not agree always, but to be the voice of calm and to say, no, it really is. It's going to be okay, to what Yvonne said. We have been here before. We have seen some of these changes. Is it going to look different? Probably, but it looked different before, right? We went through a move from the Department of Education to the Department of Workforce Development. That was 15 years ago. We're still going strong, right? And everybody thought adult education in Indiana was done. And it was one of the best things ever. So don't panic, just get organized.
Awesome. So one thing that I keep saying is our act, AFLA, is over 60 years old. We have been through a lot. And we should be here strong, loud, and proud, doing what we do, talking about what we do, because what we do is so fundamental and so bipartisan. Helping adults and their families get on stronger economic footing is not controversial. So we should just keep doing what we do as long as we have funds to do it. We are in my office, and from my associate superintendent, she's over IDEA, so of course her hair is just as much on fire as mine is. But you know, okay, you take a blow, take a breath, and say, you know what, we still have money and we still have responsibilities and compliance issues today. We still have students today. Let's keep on doing what we do. Let's keep the chaos internal here with our staff, you know, and then come out of our team meetings and say, all right, we're not sharing that part, but we're going to watch it. We're going to stay informed, as Beth said, and just try and project calm, because lots of people aren't calm. And in order for our program managers to greet their students and to support their teachers day to day, they need to know that somebody else is going to worry for them. And I think, you know, we talked to our program managers about the weight they are carrying from their teachers. The teachers are carrying the weight of the worry from their students. So we really need to support our teachers and acknowledge that. Students are coming in, they don't know what's going on. And nobody knows what's next, but we're going to be open on Thursday. We're going to be here next week. We're going to register for the next term. We're going to project hope, continuity, and be here for our students. I don't know what else to do, because I don't think panicking is going to get us anywhere, running around in circles. So, you know, we are pretty solid for the coming year, and that gives us time to organize and tell our story, and be loud and proud of all the work we've done. There's no reason, I think, to hide the good work that we're doing. We are doing good work. And Yvonne, I hope you will say something about being honest with your students.
That is exactly what I was going to say, that I missed, is telling people what the facts are and what you know, and telling them the truth, because we work with adults who know as much as we know and who are impacted as much as we are. And I think not panicking doesn't mean not sharing what's real for you. And I think we have to create spaces for everybody to share what's real for them. I know our students need it, our teachers need it, I need it. We can't do it all over the place. You know, I just can't, like, be a mess all day. But sometimes we have to create spaces for that where it's safe. And our students, a student came to a staff meeting and he said he's afraid. All his friends in his program are afraid. Some have stopped coming to school. Some have stopped going to work. But he decided that he was going to keep going. And the reason why he could do that is because his teacher and his program director told him the facts, what was going on, so he could make an informed decision. And so he decided to keep coming. And now he wants to share that with everyone in his language so that they actually understand what's real and true. I think that's super important.
Yes, that is very important. And I don't know that I have anything really to add, although at a couple of conferences early on in the year, I just told everyone to breathe, right? Just breathe. And we're up here and because we're in unique situations, right? There are 50 plus territories, so like 57 directors across the country in our roles. And for us, we actually have these Friday office hours, and we now call them Friday therapy sessions. And it's just for state directors, and it's really where we can say those things that we're frustrated about, that we can talk about things that we've heard. And so having, in addition to what everyone else said up here, I think that's the other piece that helps all of us to get through these changes that are happening, and that's been a challenge. And I'll probably say it. I know someone else up here might agree with me, but bourbon helps too. So, we're just about out of time, so I don't think we're gonna. So I think the last question is kind of a fun question, right? But you have to be really brief because we're going to be losing our audience here, okay? So if you had $10 million and the authority, because we all have to have authority to spend our money, and the authority to spend it, what would you spend it on? So got to be fast.
Full-time digital navigators.
Yeah, that's on the agenda. I would put it into our IETs and our WEIs because that is what our legislator is buying into.
Increase program grants so they can pay their teachers a livable wage.
Teacher pay, equipment, and access to high school equivalency testing. It's really a crisis in Mississippi. 40 out of our 82 counties do not have open to the public testing.
In New Mexico, we actually just finished our legislative session, and another thing that we got was an additional $17 million in total. Yeah. And we're going to, we've already decided that the biggest thing we're going to use that for, among several other things, is going to be a rise in teacher pay as well.
So in California, we're really trying to push IET, so I would have training for our teachers and our training providers and writing single sets of learning objectives. And if I couldn't do that, I promised someone in this room that I would say this, I would give Wendy my $10 million so she can get a seaplane and go to the places in Alaska that you can't get to because there's no roads. So with that, I do want to thank you all. For those of you that stuck it out with us, I know there's other things happening right now that you could be at. There's probably an open bar somewhere. So thank you very much, and have a great rest of your evening.